So the usual, this meeting is being recorded, will be posted online. Participation is in accordance with the Linux Foundation antitrust policy, as well as the code of conduct for OpenSSF. More details online. And I think it's all friendly faces, so no new friends. Yeah, so we can get started with the maintainers meeting. I think from the last meeting, we had some follow-ups from the 1.0 that we can talk to. I'm gonna copy and paste that down. And then we also had kind of some conversations about the kind of what we are doing with inclusion of projects with like trustification, and so on with the community aspect, right? So I think for the 1.0 stuff, I think it'd be good to have Path. I think he's involved with some of that as well. So I'd say maybe let's wait a little bit to talk about that. Maybe we can talk about the community aspects a bit more. Yeah, Dejan, do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, so I talked with a lot of folks internally about the ideas that we talked about last time, and everybody are super on board with it. So especially the idea that like we don't create just another random OpenSSF project, but that's what we talked about, like a one community and two, and maybe in the future more related projects slowly converging and solving this similar problem in different aspects. So I mean, from where I'm standing, we have a green light to like think more about it and then see what are the first concrete steps if you guys are on board with it. So all good news from my side so far.
Awesome. That sounds good. So maybe the next steps can be I think a couple of us can probably get together and draft a little bit on what that can look like so that we can bring it to the OpenSSF. I think Mike mentioned that I think he wanted the marketing folks to help out with that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe we can who should we include from your side, and maybe let's set up a meeting to chat on.
I'll send you on Slack some of the interested parties. Let me see from my side, like who will be. I will be technically most responsible, but I want to include more folks. So to see, yeah. So I'll send you that tomorrow probably because it's getting close to the working day for me, and I have a couple more things to wrap up. But let's chat tomorrow.
Yeah. Awesome. I can pick up the action items and schedule that. I think whoever from the Kusari side, we're gonna include whether it's Jennifer as well, or someone send me names, and then I'll try and schedule it.
Probably just me from our side for right now, or and then any of the maintainers from Kusari who also want to join. But
anybody wants to join, and I can write it down now.
Probably just invite Parth. invite Partham. I can see. It's early. I won't go.
Yeah, that's fair. It'll probably be semi-early because I think Euro time zone is also.
Yeah. Don't worry about me.
Awesome, sounds good. All right. Cool. That's great. So I think we can move on to the 1.0 discussions. I think there were two open things. One of them was actually one open thing, which was mainly like the API compatibility. The particular question was about the GraphQL compatibility and how we're going to manage that. And then part of the discussion was one, we reached out to Microsoft because they were contributing some new features which may end up in GraphQL changes. So we want to get a sense of them, how they're using it, and make sure we support that. And then the other question was how we want to manage changes in the GraphQL versioning per se. And one of the questions that was brought up by Mihai was like the GraphQL client. Technically, it should be backward compatible in the sense that if you create a new client, it should not give the error that we were seeing in the visualizer. So that may just be a bug. But I think that begs the question a little bit more of like, once we have the 1.0, maybe every minor version update, will we want to be able to say that, oh, you could have GraphQL changes, and like what is the model that you would want to handle that? You know, whether that comes into like the deployment aspects and things, or yeah. Do you want to say that they need to be in lockstep or whatever, right?
Need what to be in lockstep?
The clients and the servers and so on.
I think at least for now, while we have this bug, they should be in lockstep. And we can relax it in the future if the bug gets solved.
Yeah, if you look at like I did some of the GraphQL stuff in Python, and it doesn't generate code. It's all because it's a dynamic language. It just reads the spec and then assumes that like the code you're trying to run works, and then it either works or it fails at runtime, right? And so for that and like other interpreted languages, I assume that any additions will just like won't be a breaking change, right? So like if it reads the spec from the server and then you access an element and that element's there and hasn't changed its behavior, that code should work the same, right? So I think tying the GUAC version to Semver with the API, the GraphQL API makes sense in that we update the minor version when we add new fields, and then if we change the behavior of a field or remove the field, then it has to be a major version.
So minor version is addition of backward-compatible fields.
Yeah, or nodes, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, each time you add, it's minor. But if you
So
remove,
major version.
rename... Sorry?
Oh, no. What are you talking? I was just writing it down.
Oh yeah, so if you remove or rename or change the type of a field or make it mandatory, or it was mandatory and make it optional for all of these cases, that should be a major version.
And behavior change will fall under minor or major. I think Jeffrey said major, right?
So if you change the resolver, it will depend on how much you change it. Like if you fix a minor bug that was like removing 1 or 2 rows, that would be a minor. But if you change like the order in which the fields are retrieved or change the performance of the resolver, probably that should be major.
Yeah, I agree.
Change the way we queue. What's that? Is it fair to say like the change has to result in different user behavior? Okay. I didn't really understand the performance thing. I'm assuming that is strictly decreasing performance change.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't implement something that increases it, that increases the time to get the results. But
Okay.
even that, because you might change the order in which things are retrieved, and you might have users that depend on the order, then this would break them.
Oh. Okay.
So basically, anything with visible user behavior would be a major change.
Okay. Sounds good. Cool. Oh, one question that came up, I think this is going into the discussion with Microsoft, is they're actually implementing their own backend. The backends all follow the GraphQL, right? And so technically that will follow these rules as well.
Yeah, you have a resolver for any query and mutation in GraphQL, so the backend has to follow.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Anything else that we have to version here? I don't think so. Okay, that sounds good. So let me share a little bit about the discussion that we had with Microsoft about how they're using the GUAC API. So they have written their own backend, and their backend has its own versioning. So they're actually consuming the GUAC backend package as a library, implementing the interface, and then using the GUAC GraphQL, the GUAC GQL server binary. So the only difference there is that so there's the GUAC version that, let's say we release 1.0, they will implement a 1.0 version of the backend. Now, I think their concern comes up in a sense where, okay, now their backend has, maybe they fixed a bug on their side, right? Which is they have their own versioning system. And then they also want to leverage any changes that happen in GUAC. Let's say we go to 1.0.1, we fix a bug. They want to be able to just do a dependent bot upgrade and get the bugs fixed for themselves, right? So that's all fine and good. I think the complications come when we do let's say a minor or major version upgrade, and then that includes changes to the GraphQL. They may not be ready yet to implement the changes in the GraphQL API, but they still want the bug fixes and all that comes with the new major minor versions. So that's the current situation. I had a proposal, which is to implement a new backend function, which is like get backend API version. So at least they can still say like, oh, this is backend is still implementing v1.1 or 1.2 and so on. This seems to work for them, but I wanted to hear maybe there are other alternatives, or maybe this isn't that great an idea, and there may be some cases where it wouldn't work.
So we can have every backend report a version of the Graph API they implement. We should pair that with some conformance testing to make sure that they fully implement the version that they say they do. It will be very hard to upgrade and to tie with the GUAC version. So you release GUAC, let's say 1.5, and then you'll have to list a table, and this backend is at this version, this backend is at this version, and so on. So that will complicate the release a little bit.
But there's an administrative the table that you're mentioning, that was kind of like they would have to release that to just say like this version maps onto this version. So okay.
Yeah. So that will have to be in the release notes and on the website, on the announcement, and so on. It might result that everyone will release versions in lockstep. So you'll have this version of GUAC compatible with only this version of this resolver and so on. But you might also have to support ranges.
Jeff?
Yeah. I'm not convinced that there's going to be bug fixes in the stuff that they're pulling in from our repo. The code that's like sits on top of the backend and serves the GraphQL API is mostly auto-generated and very thin, and auto-generated from the actual spec, so they wouldn't need that change, right? So like I don't like if they have a backend, they import GUAC and then create a binary wrapper just like GUAC GQL. Like again, like I'm struggling to see this is going to be a problem until we get a real example. Like what bug fix are we going to make on 1.1 and they're still on 1.0 that they can't, that's going to be in that very thin layer of code? Because it's not the rest of the code, like I mean, I guess like, so what we're saying is like all the collectors and certifiers, like they're going to want to use the 1.0 version, and we make a fix there in 1.1.
Yeah, it is really the Go library resolution problem, where they can't have two versions.
Well, they don't, I mean, they don't have to build the collectors and certifiers along with their backend. They only have to build the GraphQL binary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think how they have it set up in their repository is there's one Golang project which does both. And so that resolution can be done separately right now.
Yeah, I mean, This seems like a lot of complexity to add for this hypothetical case that, you know, like them backporting a collector fix to the 1.0 collector from 1.1 might be a lot easier than having to have all this like backend, you know, the GraphQL server asking the backend which version it supports, yada yada stuff. And even then, like if we update, you know, if we update the collectors to like the 1.1 GraphQL API, and then they want to run the 1.0 spec, right? Like the collector's not going to work, and if it uses the new fields. So all the collectors and certifiers will have to talk to the backend so that like if we fix a bug in 1.1, it still works on their 1.0 GraphQL server. Like I don't think that's something that we want to maintain. All the GraphQL clients will have to work on, you know, multiple.
It is contradictory to the statement that we are saying that we want upgrades to be in lockstep, right?
Yeah.
By supporting it.
You know, like Linux distributions have this whole upstream downstream thing really figured out, and it's they can learn from that.
Yeah, you might also get in the situation where they'll have to, the front end and the back end have to negotiate on what query to send. It's like with HTTP, when you send headers, you first see what is the version that the server supports, and then you only send the headers that they do. The same will have to happen here. So we'll make the server side more complex because of the negotiation, and all of the clients will also have to be aware of the differences between the APIs.
I think my one of the assumptions I was making, which may be false, is that everything will be backward compatible. But I think from the discussion above, we said that like major versions can break. So
yeah,
yeah, I think the step to this would be making all the clients like support multiple versions, right? Because then they could just build a 1.0 GQL server, and then all the latest clients could work on it. You know, and they could build again, like the code outside of the backend on the server itself is super thin. There's not going to be, you know, that's not going to be a burden to maintain, you know, a 1.0 branch of the GUAC GQL server if they have their own backend.
will splitting the binaries up to a separate package help?
They should have their own Go mod, right? I think that
Yeah.
is basically like a cut and paste of our GUAC GQL main, and then loads up the wrapper from GUAC itself, and then then puts in their own backend into the wrapper. You know, so they don't have to build that. That could just be a single Go mod that they have that uses GUAC as a dependency, and then that can build just the GraphQL server, and then everything else can be built from open source GUAC if that's what they want.
So it sounds like our decision now is like we're not going to support that model, the upgrade model. Do we still need to expose that backend version information?
Well, so we want the clients to eventually be, you know, maybe not what right now, but we want the clients eventually to be able to do that, like support multiple schema versions that aren't breaking. So I think they just get that from the schema itself. Like I think they check the schema versions. There's something there with like the client server schema versions needs to happen so that maybe it has you know, it uses a new field if it's on the new schema and it doesn't if it's not, and then it works for both, something like that.
So is that something we want to explicitly encode in the backend API, or you're saying that we should let the client figure it out?
Yeah, I don't think it's between the I don't think it's between the GraphQL resolver stuff and the backend interface. I think it's the GraphQL client server interface.
Yeah, once you get to the resolver, you can only execute directly the resolver. You cannot do anything else. You cannot negotiate there.
Okay, I'm taking some notes.
And one thing we can offer is we can keep a backport branch in open source GUAC and have them contribute to it, for the clients, right? And I don't think we would all promise to like keep it up to date for every fix that goes in main, but if that's something that they would like another set of eyes on, or like some public, if they want to be like, hey, I saw this fix in main, I want to backport it to the 1.0 branch for this collector or certifier, something like that.
So
Doesn't have
would
to
we
be
want to do this
privately.
major versions, right?
No, it could be for minors, right? Because if they can't update their backend for the minor version changes. So like if we're at 1.1 and we release 1.2 and they can't update their backend to 1.2 right away, and then we make a big fix in a collector, we might open up a 1.1 backport branch and put that fix on 1.1 as well.
Okay.
So let somebody contribute that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it then doesn't become like you don't backport something until like 6 months later, and then I was like there's a chain of dependencies that you have to
Yeah.
the code's changed enough that it becomes hard to backport. Yeah, if I'm having a branch and I think people contribute to that, I think I am against maintaining that branch. But it sounds like we're saying the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think the branch will also going to reach into conflicts.
Yeah.
We had a long-running branch for, I think, for Neo4j support, and it got into a lot of conflicts. And after a while,
Well, the previous release branch for backport fixes is never going to be merged with anything.
I guess the question is like, I guess what's the benefit of having the branch there? It sounds like they're just like applying their own fork, right? And
Yeah,
then
but
if we're not, yeah.
maybe there's more people in the community that want to help too, that for one reason or another are stuck on an older GraphQL version and they can't update their server. Like,
Mhm.
just doing it. And maybe again, if they have run into trouble, they can ask for help from us.
Okay. And then we will help validate whether we'll still help validate the PRs that go into the branch, right?
Yeah.
Um, any other thoughts on this topic? Okay. I do think that that's the last thing in the punches for 1.0. So I think once we get agreement from everyone, I think Mike and Santiago, who are not on the call, then we can start preparing that 1.0 release communications. Hey, check.
Did we hash out like all the different components that we're going to call 1.0, or is it, like, are we calling the REST API 1.0?
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
we
Might have missed
said
that.
so it's up in the, if you go up to in the meeting notes, the 1.0 punch list. We say REST API is on 1.0, GraphQL and backends is stable, and then we have the whole thing on file collector, depth of depth, and OSVO ingestion. OCI collector and GitHub collector are not 1.0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see this. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Forgot.
Yeah. It's just a bit.
I remember
Yeah,
discussion. I didn't know if we ever like finalized, but that sounds good.
Yeah, I think we have to just take that paragraph and throw it into
Yeah.
ChatGPT and ask it to organize it for us. Okay, sounds good. So I think yeah, let me organize this a little bit and then write it out. At least the initial draft, and then I think I'll definitely miss a few things, and then we can just edit in during our next session. And then I think I can't remember, Ben. I know we talked about something related to 1.0 also in the coming weeks, right? Was that more on the communication side? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like the who's it for, sort of the messaging plan.
So, okay. Sounds good. Any other things that we need to chat about? Any PRs in flight that need attention? Cool. Ben, you got all the access you needed, right? Did that work?
When I looked
think-
last week, it looked like I think it was the visualizer. Maybe I didn't, but I haven't had a chance to go back and double check that yet. But I can follow up with you on that if I need to.
Okay, let me just check it while I'm here. Oh, you just ping me. It's authenticator, thanks. Cool. Anything else that we want to chat about today? If not, I think we have some good follow-ups offline. Tijan?
Just regarding the meeting about the community. So I just quickly chatted with folks. I think like I can go alone for this first one, just to not make a meeting too big, and so we can keep focused, and then we can bring more people as we decide the concrete things that needs to be done, right? So whatever you want to schedule it, yeah, it's good.
Okay. I mean, if we're keeping it small like that also, then we can use next week's maintainer meeting for the discussion, since we know time works for everyone, and I'd rather it be public than
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And then include more marketing and PM folks or whoever needs to do anything particular. Just let's figure out what what we want first, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect.
Cool. If not, we can end it today.